Check. Mic check. We're in San Francisco. Standing for justice. Mic check. I think they were there.
Okay, so now.
So maybe Marie, give us a thumbs up when we're live.
We're live. You are live.
We're live.
All right, it is live on here as well.
Okay, great. Good morning, everybody. We are live in San Francisco at the Federal Building.
Thank you all for coming today, and thank you for everyone online watching our live stream. We are Taxpayers Against Genocide. We're a grassroots group of federal taxpayers, and we're doing everything we can to oppose the genocide in Palestine that our tax dollars are funding. We're holding our elected officials in the United States accountable for their abuse of power, for breaking U.S. and international law by sending weapons and military aid to Israel to carry out this genocide. This genocide has been going on for 500 days as we stand here, almost 500 days. Thousands of lives are lost, completely altered, permanently altered. Our representatives have made us complicit, and they are complicit. And they've made all federal tax-paying Americans complicit too. Taxpayers Against Genocide opposes supremacy in all its forms, including occupation and settler colonialism and white supremacy. We're standing on the stolen land today here in Northern California on the traditionally stewarded land of the Ohlone and coastal Miwok tribes. As inhabitants of Turtle Island, we acknowledge the continued harm to indigenous and native people here and in Palestine. Our call for liberation in Palestine and for justice is a call for justice everywhere. We're going to give you some updates today and then talk about our next steps. In December of this last year, we filed our original class action lawsuit before this court here in Northern California. Our coalition started with a powerful legal case that would sue Mike Thompson and Jared Huffman, who voted in 2024, along with other congressional members, to send over $26 billion in more military aid and weapons to Israel. We had 500 class action members at the time, and now we have almost 2,000. By January, we had to amend our suit to include all of our members, and we expanded our case to include more defendants, including Nancy Pelosi, Alex Padilla, and anyone else who voted for this in our districts here in Northern California across 18 counties. Our coalition spans today from Humboldt down to Santa Cruz and across the Bay Area. Our judge, the judge in our case, Vince Chabria, has ultimately made what we consider a faulty ruling in this case, and we've recently found that he dismissed our case. He cited that he believed we brought a political issue before a legal court. Our legal argument is factual, and it is legally correct. We have a very clear standing to bring this case to the court as taxpayers, and the court has declined to do its job. What we see now is that in this one court, there is no interest in doing anything within its power to halt genocide or prevent it from happening at all. This is a profound failing of the system, and it is not a surprising one. We have been ready and working hard to explore all social, legal, and political remedies for U.S. support and complicity in genocide in Palestine for 16 months, and we're going international. We are going international to expand our movement to all taxpayers in the United States, to include all Congress people and officials who supported this genocide and continue to support it. That includes Biden and Trump and other officials in administration who support genocide. We oppose our hard-earned money being used to commit the crime of crimes, this genocide. Now my sister Hannah Barakat is going to come up and discuss the next steps in this process. Thank you, Maria. As Maria just mentioned, TAG is going international. We pivoted from the U.S. courts to the UN Human Rights Council in Geneva. We are filing a submission with the Office of the High Commissioner of Human Rights for its Universal Periodic Review of the United States. Every UN member state undergoes a UPR review every 4 years, and the U.S. happens to be under review this year. Exactly. Trump said he was pulling out of the Human Rights Council, but the U.S. membership in the council expired several years ago, and UPR will go on. We will be filing our submission in April and reaching out to South Africa and the many other countries who support their genocide case before the ICJ and ask them to help us promote our report at the UPR hearing on the U.S. before the Human Rights Council in November. We're using the UPR mechanism because of our courts and elected officials won't enforce any U.S. laws or international treaties that prohibit military funding to commit war crimes and genocide. Despite the provision of Article 6 of the U.S. Constitution that recognizes international treaties as the supreme law of the land, and despite several U.S. laws that explicitly prohibit funding militaries who are committing war crimes with our dollars, our courts routinely kick us out when we try to enforce legal remedies against our officials and Congress members who vote for supplying Israel with weapons. And Congress members are threatening with being primaried with funding and accusations of anti-Semitism by AIPAC and other pro-Israel groups if they vote against military funding for Israel. Our Congress members know that they're complicit in genocide, but they won't even meet with us, and they continue to vote to spend our tax dollars for genocide. Shame. Shame on them, and we will shame them before the world in Geneva. So as we move forward together, beyond this one federal court in California, we are taking this case national and international. Keep working in your districts, wherever you are across the country in the United States. Keep bringing suits against your elected representatives who have broken the law in the same way and voted to increase our tax dollars and funding for weapons in Israel. Use our case as an inspiration and a template and move forward where you can. But also sign on to our international campaign now. Go to our Linktree, Taxpayers Against Genocide's Linktree. Sign up to join the UPR report submission. We are building an international movement. All taxpayers in the United States can join and hold our officials accountable. We're going to the UN. We're working with highly qualified attorneys from National Lawyers Guild. These attorneys have taken international cases of human rights issues to these spaces at the international arena, and we have their full support moving forward, and we need you to sign on. So join us in holding all U.S. elected officials and administration officials who support genocide in Palestine accountable for their crimes. Please follow us on TikTok, on X, on Linktree, and on Instagram, and sign up and tell your friends. So we're going to have a series of really important statements by our class members. We're going to start with a statement by Judy Tologan. No, we are not. Okay. So we're going to start by a statement by Mama Ganoush here in San Francisco, a Palestinian San Francisco resident who couldn't be here today. Their statement will be read by Hannah. I'm honored to read this on behalf of Mama Ganoush. This is a direct quote. I've been profoundly harmed by the illegal and unconstitutional actions of my government, and I'm appalled that my Congresswoman Nancy Pelosi and Senator Alex Padilla knowingly and against all evidence, including my personal pleas, chose to use my tax dollars to fund crimes and genocide in Gaza. Since October 2023, I've lost 211 family members, including my cousin Mohammed El-Ashi, to the ongoing genocide in Gaza. I reached out to Nancy Pelosi and Alex Padilla multiple times, begging for their intervention to stop the bloodshed and to help save my family. Instead of providing support, they ignored my cries for help, voted for additional funding for weapons, and actively supported policies that further enabled Israel's genocidal campaign against Palestinians. Before April 20, 2024, I took every step I could to make my voice heard. I wrote letters to the representatives, called their offices repeatedly, and attended demonstrations demanding an end to funding arms for Israel. I personally applied for a ceasefire, appealed for a ceasefire for the protection of civilians and for the safe evacuation of my family in Gaza. Despite my efforts, my representatives failed me. Their inaction has left me, along with countless others, grieving and harmed. It is devastating to know that my tax dollars have been used to fund the annihilation of my family and the destruction of Palestinian lives. This has caused me immense emotional distress and moral injury. As someone living with multiple sclerosis, the grief and trauma of losing my family have worsened my physical and mental health. The surviving members of my family in Gaza now live without homes, food, or access to basic medical care. Meanwhile, LGBTQ plus Palestinians, including those living with HIV, are being denied life-saving medications because of the blockade and the destroyed healthcare infrastructure, all funded with my tax dollars. Nancy Pelosi and Alex Padilla, we are here to hold you accountable. You knowingly used my tax dollars to fund war crimes and genocide, and you failed to protect me and my family when I asked for your help. I'm using the only recourse left to me. We are bringing you to federal court to demand that you stop using our tax dollars to commit genocide. This was from a class rep, Mama Ganoush, who could not be here today. It was an honor to read this. Our next speaker is Nida.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Nida, and I am a Palestinian refugee living on Ohlone lands in occupied Turtle Island. We are here today disgusted and outraged with our elected politicians and the continuous gaslighting. I am a state and federal taxpayer, and I strongly oppose being made complicit in this genocide or any other genocide our government perpetrates. I strongly oppose the illegal use of my tax dollars to fund military aid and weapons that facilitate the continued genocide in occupied Palestine. I have taken every opportunity I could to make my voice heard. I've written countless emails to my elected representatives. I've repeatedly called their offices and left messages. I've attended rallies demanding arms embargo and an end to U.S. aid to the Zionist occupation of Palestine, in front of their offices, in front of their homes. After all of our attempts, my representatives, who all the while are profiting from this war machine, continue day after day to fail us, to fail all constituents and fail humanity as a whole. We are here today because it is our right as American taxpayers to demand that our congresspeople stop illegally using our tax dollars to fund the genocide in occupied Palestine.
Yeah.
This is not only about Palestine and the occupation. This is about them using our American tax dollars to kill and maim people across the world. And we demand that they stop using our dollars for death and destruction here and worldwide, and begin using these dollars to fund our own communities right here. We, the American people, need access to health care. We, the American people, need to fund our public schools and educate our children. We, the American people, need to help fund the protection and safety of our houseless, immigrant, trans, disabled, and so many other marginalized populations right here in the United States. And these Congress people are failing us all. They are failing all Americans. This government and these politicians are emboldened by our silence. And so as American taxpayers, we must band together, and we must continue this struggle towards a complete arms embargo and a complete end to all U.S. aid to Israel and any other nations that do not benefit the people right here. We must take care of our communities here on Turtle Island. We are all in this struggle now. We are all connected one way or another, and we all must continue to demand better from those that swore oaths to us. And I am aware that in this day and age, this might not be the most politically correct thing to do. This might not be the most popular thing we can do or the safest. But I know that we will continue to fight in every way that we can, because it is always the right thing to do. Thank you.
Seth Donnelly will say a few words.
Hello, I'm Seth Donnelly. I'm one of the plaintiffs of the lawsuit, and I'm also I've been a public high school teacher for almost 25 years. I want to be very, very clear to anybody in the public seeing this, that this lawsuit is not a stunt, it's not performative, it's grounded in a correct interpretation of the U.S. Constitution and international law. When Judge Shabria dismissed this case, he only used one precedent to dismiss this. The same precedent that the same court used to dismiss the class action lawsuit against Biden for genocide. And that is a case called Corey versus Caterpillar, filed by the family members of Rachel Corey, who was murdered by an IDF soldier driving a Caterpillar bulldozer in the course of demolishing Palestinian homes that she was defending. And when the court dismissed that case, they said the judicial branch doesn't make policy for the other branches. And because Caterpillar bulldozers were purchased by our tax dollars, the judicial branch, the court, couldn't tell Congress what to do. That is absurd. The judicial branch all the time makes policy. 9 times out of 10, they make their own policy, like in Plessy versus Ferguson, separate but unequal, or in Dred Scott versus Sanford, where they affirmed the constitutionality of the Runaway Slave Act, the Fugitive Slave Act. They're making policy all the time, but when it comes to our tax dollars being used to exterminate the people of Palestine, this judge wants to say, oh, we don't get political. We don't make policy. We call that out. That is not true, and we are not backing down. We are going to explore any and all mechanisms domestically to hold these Congress people accountable for complicity in genocide. And as has been mentioned, we are going to the United Nations, and we're looking at other international mechanisms to hold them accountable criminally for complicity in genocide. It's my honor to read testimony by Nicholas Saba, one of our plaintiffs from Mountain View, California. Nicholas is a first-generation Palestinian-American race in San Jose. He is an Orthodox Christian, as his family in occupied Palestine has been for generations. He currently works in medical technologies and deals with the treatment of cancer. This is a short statement he wrote for this occasion. While the complicity of the American government in the genocide of Palestinian people has been ongoing since Israel's inception in 1948, the evidence to hold those responsible accountable has never been so overt as it is today. As attested by Human Rights Watch and Amnesty International, as well as the famous leaders of the civil rights movement to dismantle apartheid in South Africa, like Nelson Mandela and Desmond Tutu, Israel is an apartheid state where one's rights are determined by ethnicity and religion. Beyond this, territories not owned but occupied by Israel have faced starvation, disruption of travel, even under medical emergencies, destruction of homes and holy sites, and the massacre of the native civilian population for decades. Since October 7th, the American people started to see the truth of what they'd been lied to about by their representatives. Congresswoman Anna Eshoo, who visited a church I was baptized in when it was burned down by a Zionist arson attack in 2002, is uniquely knowledgeable on the topic. She has spoken as an Armenian American about the atrocities of the Armenian genocide and the need to prevent similar events. Myself and thousands of her other constituents have informed her again and again over the last 15 months of these issues and the realities of the ongoing genocide in Palestine that has resulted in the warrant for the arrest of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in the International Criminal Court. We invited Representative Eshoo to town halls, held meetings with her, met with her at her office, and yet she continuously took money from Israeli lobbies and shoved down our opposition to her pro-war, pro-genocide, and pro-Israel military profit ventures that are directly conflicted with the will of the vast majority of her constituents. This is exactly what many people all across have experienced these 18 counties with Representative Eshoo, with Nancy Pelosi, and on and on. Nicholas Sava's testimony is a very powerful reflection of that. Thank you.
Next, we'll have Kali Sheikh Islami.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kali Sheikh Islami. I'm a physician, a taxpayer, and an immigrant. I work hard for my earnings, and I expect my congressional representatives and senators to use our tax dollars responsibly. The Leahy law is clear. U.S. military should not go to countries that violate human rights. Senator Leahy himself recently expressed concern that the U.S. government is violating this law by providing military aid to Israel. Despite countless calls, letters from constituents urging our representatives to withhold such funding, billions of our tax dollars continue to fund military operations responsible for mass destruction. These weapons of mass destruction are being used to perpetuate genocide. This complicity leaves blood on all our hands.
That's right.
I am deeply morally injured. As a physician committed to preserving life, it has been excruciating to focus on treating patients here while witnessing the mass bombing and killing of innocent children and civilians in Gaza and Lebanon, acts funded by this government. This genocide violates every fiber of my being as a human and as a healer. In May, I went to a medical mission trip to Gaza. Amid the destruction, I encountered resilient, kind, and hospitable people. It was an honor to serve them, yet heartbreaking to see their lives shattered. If more Americans could witness what I saw in Gaza, they would understand the tragedy and horror we are inflicting upon innocent civilians. I'm also reminded of the homeless community I served for many years. A mere fraction of our tax dollars could provide housing, dignity, and opportunity to those struggling on our streets. America has the resources to uplift its own citizens and address urgent domestic needs, of which there are many, but instead it prioritizes so-called defense spending. There is no moral or legal justification for destroying an entire society as has happened in Gaza. This is not defense. It is devastation and destruction. It is long past time for us to demand accountability and a reorientation of our national priorities towards justice, humanity, and the well-being of all people. Thank you.
Thank you, Khalid. Next, Seth will read. You're going to read Jed's.
Jedediah Bell could not be here. He's an internal medicine and pediatric physician, a member of Healthcare Workers for Palestine in the Bay Area, and Doctors Against Genocide. Here's his statement. Last year, I watched in horror as Israel's war campaign against genocide against Gaza expanded. Israel's indiscriminate bombing campaign disproportionately killed children, and its intensified siege used starvation as a method of warfare. In addition to this, Israel unimaginably started directly targeting healthcare facilities, which are locations protected by international law. In response, I wrote multiple letters to the California legislature and the White House pleading for the government to comply with its own Leahy law and stop funding a state repeatedly shown to be committing gross human rights violations. Instead of adhering to the U.S. and international law and protecting civilian life, Senators Padilla and Butler voted on April 22nd, 2024, to send additional $26 billion of military aid to Israel. And mourn the destruction of Gaza, the deaths of over 200,000 Palestinian civilians, and killings of over 1,000 of my healthcare colleagues. Child psychiatrist Dr. Kadir has said, witnessing a genocide is an assault to our neurobiology. and indeed being assaulted daily with horrifying images of mothers clutching the bodies of their killed children, long lines of young men in white body bags, children shaking in shock after bombing attacks, and now the sole survivors of their families. This has left me in a state of anxiety and distress. Many days I struggled to go to work. The juxtaposition of my healing work against the horror happening has jarred my senses. My personal, physical, and psychological distress is exponentially increased being an active financial contributor to this. I'm appalled that my federal taxes raised by taking care of the sick and the vulnerable in California were used to further the genocide of the people. To our California senators, I say, multiple protests, petitions, and letters have had no impact on your continued support of this genocide. So I joined this class action to hold you accountable for your complicity. Together, we bring you to federal court to stop you, Senator Butler and Senator Padilla, from using our tax dollars to fund genocide. Thank you.
Next up, we have David Sparrow.
I can't talk much about the details of this case, just it affects me so emotionally. I just want to talk about what the case means to me. I'm Jewish American, and I have childhood friends who have moved to Israel and live there. I also have a lot of online friends who live in Gaza, and I have personal friends in real life who have relatives who have been killed in Palestine. And this is all happening every day. I don't know from day to day whether my Gaza friends are alive or not. And I have lived and paid taxes in San Francisco for 50 years, and I never resented the use of my taxes to support government functions and things that had to be done. But now, as of 2024, Nancy Pelosi decided to send my tax money to fund mass murder and killing of my friends in Palestine. And I wrote her, and I called her, and I went to her offices, and I went to her home, and all I ever got was a form letter. So I signed on to this case, and I will stay with this case as far as we can take it. She's made me complicit in the worst crime of the century, and can't take that.
Next up, we have Judith Green.
My name's Judith. I'm a retired attorney and court investigator, and I've resided in California since 1969 and in Contra Costa County since 2000. I'm a 78-year-old Jewish woman raised in New York City, where I met several survivors of the Holocaust. As descendants of those who did or did not survive the Holocaust are now doing to Palestinians what was done to their ancestors is horrifying. Since October 7, 2023, I have been haunted by the fact that my tax dollars are paying for the murder of innocent Palestinian children, women, and men, and the destruction of their homes, schools, medical facilities, and their religious and cultural institutions. Prior to April 2024, I called and emailed my representatives and senators many times and signed multiple petitions requesting an end to their funding of this tragedy. I have joined this lawsuit because those in government who have facilitated this carnage by voting to send money to support the killing machine must be held accountable.
Next up, we have Dr. Hassan Fouda.
I'm Hassan Fouda, and I live in Berkeley, California, where I pay taxes and participate in the political process as a voter, as a donor, and I regularly engage my elected officials to represent the concern and interest of me and my community. Since October 2023, I repeatedly contacted my representative by every means possible, imploring them to call for a ceasefire and to follow the law and stop authorizing the transfer of offensive weapons that are used to annihilate the Palestinian people in Gaza, only to see that my pleas ignored. I was and I am horrified by the magnitude of this and destruction paid for by my tax dollars. I am outraged that my representatives continue to vote to spend more deadly weapons despite constituents' pleas. I watched in horror as my representative voted in April 2024 to authorize an additional $26 billion to send more weapons to Israel. At the time, the genocide in Gaza was televised for all to see, and almost every important international organization has concluded what's going on is genocide. I am here with the other plaintiffs to end my complicity in the genocide. It is painful to know that my tax money is used to destroy whole neighborhoods and whole families in Gaza. During the Nazi Holocaust, many German citizens, to their eternal shame, were silent. We are here because we refuse to be silent.
That's right.
It is painful to see that the politicians I voted for are not only indifferent to genocide, but are complicit in it. It is painful to see these politicians disregard their oath to obey the laws of the land. We are all members of the global community and have an obligation to respect and adhere to international law. It is painful to see our officials disregard these laws and skirt their obligations. We need to put these politicians on notice. We are watching them and we are holding them accountable for their actions. The least we should expect from our elected officials is to obey the law. We respectfully disagree with Judge Vince Sarabia's conclusion that the case presents a political question. Breaking U.S. federal laws and international law is a criminal act, not a political act. The judge's decision leaves us no choice but to move forward and seek redress in other arenas. And thank you all for being here.
Unhei Langus.
Hi, I'm Unhei Langus from Santa Cruz. I'm a writer and a former teacher turned activist. The Gaza war shattered me as a human being. I heard the daily reports on Democracy Now! And saw images and sounds of horror and destruction, harmless to my body, but unspeakably terrifying to bodies of flesh and blood in Gaza, of IDF's various ingenious methods of slaughter, One especially pierces my heart, that of booby-trapping cans of food with explosives, such that a little boy is brought into the hospital with hands dangling and part of his face blown off.
Shame.
I cannot stomach the barbarity of Israel's methodical annihilation in this era of high-tech AI warfare that increases their immunity and impunity as the rogue states of Israel and the US are effectively normalizing genocide. I joined this lawsuit when all my various actions alone and with my local activist group, Panetta Vigil, to affect our political leaders proved to no avail. Sadly, District Judge Chabria dismissed our legally solid case on the false grounds that we presented the court with a non-judiciable political question. What's political is Judge Chabria's decision, because since when is defending rights, human rights, political? In defending all lives in a common humanity, prevention and punishment of genocide transcends politics. Sending arms to Israel against the wishes of a majority of U.S. taxpayers violated the Constitution, the UN Genocide Convention, and the U.S. federal laws like the Leahy Law. There is something grossly wrong, something rotten in our democracy when our presidents, officials, representatives can aid and abet genocide with impunity and immunity. That's why we will submit a report jointly with the National Lawyers Guild attorneys to the United Nations Human Rights Council in April for the U.S. Universal Periodic Review. For 76 years, the Palestinians had been at the forefront of a struggle against occupation, apartheid, ethnic cleansing, and genocide. Their struggle for human rights represents and uplifts the struggle of all people of color and all people who oppose world-destroying violence of imperialism. With the deepest admiration and gratitude for the freedom-fighting, life-loving Palestinians, the true Semites of anti-Semitism, I fully endorse advancing the cause to the UN. I do it for the Palestinians, and I do it to preserve humanity against the brutalizing, tyrannizing forces presently around us.
Elliot Hellman. Elliot Hellman. Oops, my mistake. Next we have Tariq Kahana.
Okay. Good afternoon. I'm going to try to keep it brief, but I don't promise. I'm Tariq Kanana. I'm Palestinian American. I live in Santa Rosa, just a little bit north of here. If you know anything about the Palestinians, about us, you know that we're one big family. Every one of them is my sibling or my father or my uncle or my doctor or teacher. Every time a young man or a young woman is killed, it's my brother or sister. Every time a home is demolished on the people inside it, it is my home. Every time a newborn baby is left to rot in the incubator, it's my child. Since the beginning of this genocide, we've been forced to watch, we've been made to watch as American bombs dropped from American airplanes are killing our families. These 2,000 pound bombs with components made in Healdsburg, just an hour and a half drive from here. Every time that is dropped on a family, it's dropped on all of us. Ever since the beginning, 15 or 16 months ago, we've been going out in the streets. We've been going to city councils, anywhere we could think of to try to get our voices heard. And we've been ignored. And the natural progression of that is to go to court, to sue the lawmakers that have done this. Again, as expected, the judge dismissed this case, and this has been happening every time a council member says no, every time a university administrator sticks their police attack dogs on the students standing up for what is right. It's the same thing. It's more proof that the system is set up to defend itself.
That's right.
Every one of them is one of the thugs that is charged with defending, with maintaining the status quo and the empire. I like to say they're the middle management of empire. And when this is happening, we're not going to stop. Our families, our friends, everybody is being killed, and we're here watching. And along with all my friends that are around me here, we are not willing to let that go. We are going to take it to wherever we have to and do whatever we need to, because that's how we take care of our family. Thank you.
Ariel Mihik. Hi, my name is Ariel Mihik. I am the descendant of immigrants from Shanghai and Hunan provinces, along with Irish and Croatian lineage. I was born on the ancestral lands of the Kickapoo and currently reside here on Ramaytush Ohlone homelands. I have lived in the same small apartment here in San Francisco for over 20 years, and I came to the Bay Area excited to delve into a career in the biotech industry and quickly fell in love with the thriving arts, culinary, and circus communities here in SF. And many of those are struggling to maintain a presence in our now gentrified and overly commodified city. It is, though, the reason I still live here and try to make performance spaces and healthcare spaces accessible and to create more space for BIPOC and trans artists to thrive. My heart has been broken by the most recent atrocities in Gaza and the West Bank. Since October, there's been nothing more prominent in my life than trying to stop the genocide of the Palestinian people. And watching daily as hospitals are bombed and dismantled, healthcare workers were targeted and killed, it has been a dystopian nightmare of a country set on destroying the infrastructure and healing centers of an entire people. I watched the resilience of the Free Gaza Circus doing backflips on the rubble and in the sand by their tents, and I'm filled with despair at joy being thwarted at every turn. We take the tax dollars that our city here could use to bring back a vibrant arts community here in SF or to fund access to healthcare that our community desperately needs, and instead we use them to destroy every possible means of survival and existence in Palestine. Working within the system has been futile, as the many calls, emails, and demonstrations to Senators Butler and Padilla and Representative Pelosi have gone unaddressed. We have visited Pelosi's mansion, that's right, mansion, over in Pack Heights, singing chants, painting the sidewalks, and collectively mourning in her front yard, only to see her peep out of the windows and then quickly turn her back on us. This is what they do. They are a class unto their own who have turned their backs on the common people standing right in front of them. Our elected officials have failed us, both morally and legally, forcing taxpayers to be complicit in this genocide by continuing to send arms to support Israel with full knowledge of its genocidal intent. With this lawsuit, we hold you accountable.
Right on.
Paige Cummings.
Hi everyone, my name is Paige Cummings and I've been a resident of Contra Costa for the last 30 years. Currently I am a therapist working with primarily foster and low-income youth in the Bay Area. Since October of 2023, I have sent numerous communications to my representatives expressing my concern and asking that they represent the asks of so many community members by not sending more money and weapons to Israel. My communications went unanswered. And on April 20th, 2024, after I and countless others had spent over a year emailing, calling, and demonstrating, I saw my own representatives vote to support the continuation of death, bombing, and destruction. My entire life, I was taught to believe that we lived in a country that stood on no taxation without representation. I am left wondering why Senator Butler and Senator Panetta continue to fail to represent their constituents while taking our tax money and voting to send it directly to be used to commit genocide. As a therapist, I am very familiar with trauma. I have seen the eyes of babies frozen open in fear. I have seen the bodies and blood of innocent people who were killed for existing. I have to wake up every single day wondering if my own friends and loved ones survived the night. I have emailed and called and screamed to stop the torment, for our representatives to stop the killing and to listen to the people they have a legal obligation to serve. When I close my eyes, I see the images. In the quiet moments, I hear the screams and the bombs. No human is meant to live this way. Not to mention the fact that I have to live with knowing every single dollar I spend and every paycheck I make contributed to these horrors. My values and morals have been compromised by the choices that our representatives made to not do their jobs. I'm appalled by not just what is happening, but by the fact that I am forced by the very people whose job it is to protect me and my rights to participate in this egregious and devastating assault on human rights. Senator Butler and Senator Panetta, as your constituent and with all of the representatives standing behind me, I'm here to hold you accountable for the illegal and morally damaging use of our tax dollars. I'm using every legal recourse available to me now. We are here to bring you to federal and international court to stop you from using our tax dollars to fund genocide.
Dylan Castleton.
Hi, my name is Dylan Castleton. I'm 55 years old and I've lived in the California Bay Area for my entire life. Like many others that grew up in the United States, as a school child, I was taught about many of the injustices, historical injustices and atrocities committed in this country. The genocide of Native people, slavery, segregation, Jim Crow, and of course we learned about the Holocaust. I was bewildered at how these things could happen. Who made these decisions? And how is it that people went on with their lives as usual and didn't do something to make it stop? I now fully understand how it happened. For the past 16 months, we've been living through it. The wealthy profit from these systems and acts of violence and seek to maintain them. The media serves serve us false narrative to obfuscate and misrepresent the nature of the atrocities. And the politicians use slogans which confuse the contexts while laundering false moral justifications. These three forces then levy a campaign of repression on those that have the courage to speak out. They're called names. They lose their jobs. They're suspended from their schools and are not reelected to office due to millions of dollars spent to keep them silent. In the first months of the genocide, I was hopeful that with enough pressure, my Democratic representatives might be responsive. So I wrote letters. I called and emailed and participated in several demonstrations outside of the offices of Senators Padilla and Senator Butler, pleading with them to do something to confront the daily massacres of human beings in Gaza, and very specifically to vote no to using my tax money to send more bombs and other offensive munitions to the genocidal Israeli regime. Their silence was deafening. The colossal moral and legal failures of the Democratic Party, as well as the Republican Party, has turned me, along with hundreds of thousands of Americans of conscience, into political orphans, and has left a bleak landscape with little political hope on the horizon. I signed on to this lawsuit as a class representative because I desperately hope that if there's a measure of accountability for this gross miscarriage of domestic and international law, that others won't follow these misguided steps, and that our system can possibly bend just a little bit towards justice.
Judith Merkinson.
Hi, everybody. My name is Judith Merkinson. I'm a member of the National Lawyers Guild. I'm a legal worker and human rights worker. I want to tell you about the Genocide Convention. It defines what genocide is. The intentional killing or harming of a group based on national, ethnic, racial, or religious identity. Is that happening in Gaza? It prohibits the subjecting of a group to conditions that lead to its physical destruction. Is that happening in Gaza? Yes. And the West Bank? Yes. It prohibits preventing births within a group. Devastating. Is that happening in Gaza? And not just in Gaza, but in the West Bank and in many other places. It prohibits forcibly transferring children from a group. And it requires states to punish those who commit genocide, whether they are public officials, private individuals, or rulers. And that's why we're here. And it doesn't just say that people have to commit genocide. It says that there is a moral and legal obligation for states and individuals to stop genocide where they see it. And that is why we're here. You know, I have lived in San Francisco for 50 years, which I can't believe. And Nancy Pelosi has been my representative for most of them. Nancy Pelosi is a war criminal. Nancy Pelosi not only is a war criminal in Gaza, she was a war criminal in Iraq. She's been a war criminal in Libya. She has supported every war that the United States has been involved in. Make no mistake, she is guilty of genocide, but she is also guilty of crimes against humanity, just as all these other congresspeople are, who we are suing. Make no mistake, that is why we are here. And we are here because we don't accept the normalization of killing people. We don't accept the fact that our tax dollars just go to kill people. And their tax dollars go up and up while the billionaires taxes go down, 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 and they are running our lives. And I agree with the previous speaker. It always, as a Jewish New Yorker who grew up as the granddaughter of those who escaped pogroms, I always wondered, well, how did it happen? How did they manage to kill so many people in Germany and throughout the world? How did they do it? But now I know. It's very easy. We can see it happening step by step by step in our own country. And people who call themselves liberals, like Nancy Pelosi, are just as guilty as the fascists of Donald Trump and the Republicans. We know that impunity guarantees repetition. We know that impunity means that people will just keep doing the same thing over and over again. And we have seen that countless times in our lives, whether it be in Zionist entity that people call Israel, or the imperialist entity that we call the United States, whether it happened in Central America, whether it's happening in Africa, whether it's happening in Haiti right now. We know that this is happening, and that the reason it's happening is, as everyone has talked about, they are not being held accountable. One way to do it is to go to court. But we know the courts do not bend towards justice. The courts bend towards injustice. And the only way that we are going to stop this genocide, the genocide in Congo, the genocide in Sudan, the genocide in Haiti, the wars in Colombia, the only way, the homelessness, the lack of education, the lack of health care. You know that we're paying for free health care for Israelis. The only way that we are going to stop it is because we are building a movement. We are building a movement for human rights. We are building a movement to support and be in solidarity with the Palestinian people who have led us in this incredible time. We are building a movement for justice. We are building a movement to stop these people once and for all. We are building a movement to create an earth that isn't trashed by climate change. And we are building a movement of liberation. Thank you.
Wow, that was incredible. We want to invite everyone, every federal taxpayer in the United States of America, to sign on and join us in this fight as we go international to the United Nations. There are ways that you can do that. If you want to follow us on all of our social media accounts, we're on everything. You can find us Taxpayers Against Genocide, TikTok, Taxpayers Against Genocide, Instagram the same. If you want to find us on X or on Threads, it's No Tax 4G Side, CIDE. You can follow our link tree from our Instagram page and sign on and be a part of this movement. The more, the better. I'm pretty sure that's correct, right? We want more. We want them all. We are going to explore every international mechanism that can hold these criminals accountable, and we will not stop. Thank you so much for being a part of this press conference today. Thank you so much. We have an announcement from Cynthia from Code Pink.
First, I want to acknowledge the truckers who have really made this place beautiful with their messages for free Palestine and to end the genocide. Thank you so much. And the main organizers in Taxpayers Against Genocide. I am from Code Pink, and we're going to go further with our taxpayer rage against our government spending our tax dollars on genocide, continual war, climate violence, and on and on. We are starting, we won't pay. Join the Tax Boycott Pledge campaign. What if thousands of taxpayers pledged not to pay their 2024 taxes? Just did a pledge. Oh, yeah. No risk, no obligation. And when we get to 5,000, we will activate that pledge, or that's what we're going to tell the media and the public, and give people hope that actually by withholding their taxes, they can show their economic power. We have a lot of power. We have a lot of power. Let's not give them our money for the slaughter, the murder, the continual taxes flowing to the weapons industry. I have a pledge form here, and I also have an email you can send your pledge to. Thank you so much for giving me this time, and thank you to Taxpayers Against Genocide.